Tuura, welcome to the Petey Performance Podcast. The first thing I want to say to you though is thank you firstly for coming on, I guess, but thank you for curing my knee pain, my patellar tendinitis, which was about, I'd say, a year ago. I had ACL reconstruction maybe 2.5 years ago, and I just presented with it for so long because they took the graft from my patella. And through the daily ISOs, the vertical jump protocol, and the hypertrophy clusters, bing, bang, boom, it's gone. So fair play to you, mate. You've sorted it out for me. I know there's multiple factors. I did work with David Gray as well, who we were just talking about. But the two of you have done a top class job in having me at close to full fitness. You're never at full fitness. But how are you getting on? Why are you in Central Time? You're traveling. You're on the road, are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know you went through that. That's cool. I was traveling. I went out to Texas, Phoenix, California. Now I'm just going back. So I'm actually I don't even know the time zones. I'm in Denver, which is not Central Time, but you always lose or gain an hour based off of that. Yeah.
Nice. Have you been managing to train while you've been moving about, or what was the goal with the travel?
Yes. Well, I have people I've met over the years in different locations, and the thing, I guess the thing when you're working in strength, I guess privately or at college, especially at college, is you only have 2 weeks a year that you can travel and do anything. So I don't do that anymore. So now it's I have all these people that I know, and I have a chance to go hang out with them. And I just kind of get bored being in the same location too. Get really bored and unmotivated. So traveling for me is nice. And then you can also, there's so many hiking, there's so many places that I can go see. And you're in Ireland. I'm from Wisconsin, Minneapolis area. And for 8 months out of the year, it just sucks because it's cold and snowy. And I like to get away from that. The question on training. So yeah, I have been able to train. It was a lot better than last year. Last year I was traveling during COVID. So all the gyms, I was in California. California was the worst. Everything was shut down. They were just opening Planet Fitnesses and LA Fitnesses, but you couldn't play basketball, and that sucked bad. But yeah, I've still been able to train. And if I don't have gyms, I just do stuff. I just do isometrics, or I do stuff at my place. But I think your questions will get into the ankle injuries I've been dealing with. So that's been a big thing.
The ins and outs of it, yeah. Have you noticed with the travel, and then I suppose you haven't been doing much physical aside from, as you said there, the training and then the hiking, but has the travel taken a bit of hit on, say, your regeneration or your recovery from that ankle injury? Did it make any difference? Or
I think so, but I hurt my right ankle. I was playing basketball last winter, and I shot a 3-pointer, and I landed on a guy's foot. He closed out underneath me, which you could be you shouldn't do that. That's kind of a thing. But I've done it a number of times, because if someone's good at shooting threes, you want to get up in their face. And I just came down on his foot, twisted it, and I thought I could get up and be fine, but I was like, no, I can't. So I let it. I elevated it, waited. I was with one of my buddies, waited for him to get done, and then I walked downstairs to go to the car. It was okay. And I got to a gas station. I couldn't put any weight on it. And then I got to my place I was staying at, and I couldn't put any weight on it at all. So I was hopping on my left leg on pure ice, trying to get into my place. And then for about a week, I had to keep it elevated. It hurt so bad. And it wasn't broken. I think it must've been a grade 2 or a grade 3 sprain, but they do the ligament testing after a week, and they're like, oh, it's good. And it's are you sure it's good? You can't really see anything. There's so much swelling. So yeah, that whole process has been a long time, but it's mostly been, I would say, with my brain. I hate to say mental, because it creates this weird abstract concept where we just say our brain. I just was really not motivated to train because it sucked. My ankle hurt all the time. Everything I did, my ankle was painful. And I can't play basketball. I can't jump. I can't lift heavy. All that stuff that I love doing, I couldn't do. So for a month and a half, I just gained some body fat, probably I don't know how much, 5 pounds. But going through it, it was just like, wow, am I ever going to be, when you go through something like that, you're always like, is it ever going to go away? Am I ever going to be back to the way I was? But I would say after a month and a half, completely flipped it. And I'm like, I'm training twice a day. Like, I'm sick of this. Let's go. So I don't really need gyms, man. Like I like having dumbbells and barbells and stuff, but like I can accomplish a lot of stuff in a living room of a Airbnb I'm staying at or a hotel room. You know, I can do like a 30-minute workout, or if I go for a hike, I'm moving for the majority of the day. So all that stuff helps. But I think travel in general, if I sit in a car for 8 hours, my whole body feels awful. So I try not to drive. Like I think I drove 12 hours one day, and you pay for it the next day or two. So yeah, I just really try to split it up and not drive like 8 hours tops in a day, or I'm going to be paying for it for a while. But I actually hurt my other ankle too. I was playing basketball again, and then I think from the compensations, I had something happened with some other guy. It was another contact thing, and my left one went, but not as bad at all. And then I just keep playing on it. But yeah, recently it's been weird, man. Ankle injuries coming up. I used to have them so really bad as a kid. I had them all the time playing high school basketball, and recently haven't really had them at all. But I think you always need to, every injury you ever get, you need to look at people talk about biomechanics, and it obviously does matter, but load is always the biggest thing, always. And it's like, it's not just that you're doing too much, but it's also like, what did you take away? And for me, I think for me, the things I always take away are the low level stuff, or hours of low level stuff. And I get in the mode where I'm like, I was writing my jumper seat training protocol or training program. And maybe I wouldn't say for sure, but maybe I was sitting on my computer for a majority of the day. And then I'm going for like a 1 hour walk, and then I'm training for 1 hour. So I get like 2 hours of movement per day. And back in the day when I was like at the university, or if I'm working in a gym, it's like I get probably 8 or 10 hours of movement. And a lot of that's going through my ankles. It could be elastic volume, or it could just be walking around. And you take away that load, and then you go back to the max effort stuff that I love doing, which is max effort jumping, heavy lifting, playing basketball, and then something comes up and my ankle goes. Who knows if that's the cause, but I think it's definitely related.
Movement is medicine, but you've touched on it there as well. Like the type of movement that we do, we don't actually understand exercise that much yet. Like there's a lot of studies that need to go in until we actually understand what is at play here, because you can throw exercise at people. Now, I know you're obviously a higher training age than most people, but they will adapt and they will get better, and their pain will go away. And sometimes it doesn't really matter what you throw at them. It's just probably better to know and have a rationale behind what you're going to throw at them, I guess. So that's why we are employed and we make money as coaches. But I'm interested to ask you there, because it sounds like you were really frustrated because you weren't able to do the things that you enjoy. But did any of that frustration come down to the fact that over the last couple of months on your podcast, you've been talking a lot about pain science and the science of pain, and you were thinking to yourself, like, I want to push through this, but my body is preventing me from doing so. And then I know you're good mates with Will as well, Will Rattel, and you would have been definitely saying to yourself, why am I being so soft?
It's interesting. Like when you have, because I mean, you've had patellar tendinopathy. I had patellar tendinopathy for like 3 years probably. And the phrase, the don't be soft phrase, I think it came up. I'm not exactly sure, but I say things, usually the things that I say and the way that I treat people are because I kind of see myself, my past self in them. And I had patellar tendinopathy for like 3 years, and I would identify with it. And my friends would want to go do stuff, and I'd be like, nah, my knee, and I would like make it a thing. And now if I ever have any close friend, or there is a person who's like looks up to me and they're like, oh, my knee hurts, my patellar tendon, dude, stop, stop. Don't like, if you need to hang around a group of people that are not supportive of that. In my opinion, they're probably like, if you, because it's all about results. If you're in sports or you're in performance, all anyone ever cares about is results. And if you have knee pain and you're complaining about your knee pain, nobody cares about you. So get that thing solved. And I think the beautiful thing is that I didn't have, I guess my first 3 years was you can train all the time. You can train multiple times per day to heal your patellar tendon pain. For me, it was like go to PT and then rest, go to PT and then rest. And that was it. But all these new ideas with the adaptation rates and all of the surrounding areas that you can load to get it better, and then training other areas to offload it. So, but dude, I would say for myself, like I would say this, that the pain science side or the brain side is, even when you have a tendinopathy, and I'm gonna relate this to my ankle, even when you have a tendinopathy, the initial stages, it will be reactive and you don't need to load it. You just need to rest. Like someone, if they get patellar tendon pain, it's the first time ever in their life. You look at the tendinopathy continuum, it's going to be a reactive tendon. And that just means that it's kind of pissed off and you've overloaded it too much. So you don't need to go and do the leg extension isos, and you don't need to go and load the thing. All you have to do is take it easy for a few days, and it's usually going to go away. So yeah, rest is bad for a degenerative tendon. If someone has a degenerative tendon and they're still resting it, and it's like, how long you been trying that rest? And they're like, months. And it's like, okay, stop trying the rest. But I think for any injury is, you might just need some time for the tissues to give it a little break, or you might need some time for your brain because you're still fearful. Just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna like flip and become lazy and just hang out for a while. I think it's cool to live to try to be both sides of like, I'm gonna go 100% and train all the time, and then it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna do nothing for a while. Maybe not necessarily unrelated, but I was just talking with Angus Bradley. I was on his podcast, and he was talking about me leaving college because I was so dedicated for like 7 years to be a Division I college strength coach, basketball too, and that I got exactly that. That's what I did, and then I just gave up on it completely, and I'm like, I'm done. And I read this book. It was called The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, and one of the chapters, it was a life-changing book for me. I read it in college. Was be willing to change everything in your life, and multiple times too. So I look at my training, like dunking and gaining muscle and patellar tendon pain, and I'm like, I should reach a point where I have maximized my ability, and I've maximized my knowledge, and I've maximized my ability to help people, and then I'm done with it. You know, I'm done with it. So I don't know if I'm getting there yet, because I still really enjoy training. But you also have weeks and months where you're like, I am not motivated to train. I don't even want to do this. Why am I doing this? And you can find benefit if you continue to push through. Maybe you figure it out. But I think you can also find benefit if you just completely stop and kind of reflect and be like, all right, maybe find a different reason for why you're doing it. Because yeah, but I think it's always like, people probably see, and I'm like, I have this identity of like training all the time, don't be soft, and it's like, you know what, I could there's probably a day in my life where I'm going to completely change and be the opposite. And if you don't, I don't know, I'm going to be the same way for 30 years. I don't think that's going to be the case.
There's always something else you can do, something different, and that is going to,
and it's like different levels. I think it's just that I'm set in, if I act a certain way when I'm 25, should I still act that way when I'm 30? I don't think I will. I think if I continue to read and I continue to meet other people, I think I'm going to see things that I like and dislike from people, or things that I like and dislike in the world. And then I'm going to gravitate towards the thing that I like. But you only get that through experience. And I think that's a problem. So let me go back to like the college sector. That was such a huge problem, dude. I got that job, and I think 1 month in, I was like, it was a full-time job. I mean, I was making bad money, but I'm making full-time money. I've never made that much. And I was like, I should quit and go intern somewhere, because I'm not learning anything. I had no one. I was working with like 6 or 7. Maybe that was just in the summer, actually, just with basketballs. But I was just like, there's no continuing education here, because I probably could have found it if I looked hard enough. Maybe sitting with coaches and learning the sport more, or maybe I could have done it. But that was when our soccer coach Brian came in the winter, and he was one of the biggest mentors of my life. Like, the dude was at a level of knowledge and a level of perspective of strength conditioning and sport that I wanted to be at. And I've said this before, but the most powerful thing you can do in your life is find someone at a level that you want to be at and just hang out with them. Hang out with them for years. You can read all the books and do all the phone calls. All that stuff doesn't do anything at all. Find someone who's where you want to be and hang out with them. So I was lucky Brian was there and he did that, and I got to hang out with him. And it took me like 2 or 3 years to finally get to a point where I'm like, I kind of understand where you're coming from. And that's where all the red pill and the matrix analogy stuff come from. But yeah, dude, it's having that would not have happened if he never came. And I could have been the same meathead strength coach, the same guy in the weight room, like yelling at people and not connecting with the athletes. And I don't think that's right. That's not me. I could have been that guy if if Brian had never stepped in Youngstown and got that job. I would like to say I wouldn't have been, because I probably would have seeked other people and probably would have tried to get my way out of there. But yeah, you should evolve. Who you are should evolve, and it's going to evolve through experiences. And I think the most powerful thing is finding a person who's at a level way above you and just hang out with them. The hard thing is often those people don't want to spend time with you. So you got to find a way to make that happen.
Yeah, facts. Like, you have to be challenged, but we just touched on it there. Like, you can't challenge yourself 24/7, 365. There has to be downtime. And it's similar to training as well, and similar to the season when we're coaching athletes. But is there any part of you now that looks back on, obviously you've transitioned to the private sector, but you've spoken to all these people, you've had all these great mentors, and you've developed so much as a coach, to now, do you ever ask yourself or say, geez, it would be great to go in with a team now where I had full control and I could employ all the things that I've learned, because now I'm not the meathead strength coach that just chases numbers in the gym. Now I understand the value of controlling training sessions. Well, not controlling, that might be a poor term to use, but having an impact on the field or the court or the track, as well as within the walls of the gym.
Yeah. I think it goes back to that I've kind of, like, sports, dude, training when I work with these teams, like, it was everything to me. I was like, this team, I want everyone to get bigger, stronger, faster, whatever it is, improve sports, win games. And then I'm working with basketball or these different team sports. You realize you don't really have that big of an impact. And I guess now looking back, you can have a big impact on fatigue levels, getting practices, working with coaches to get practices right. That would probably be the most important thing. Educating athletes if they want to be educated, and educating in a way where it's like, what I'm saying should make sense to like a 4-year-old. You know, you don't have to come in the weight room and do all this stuff that you're like, why am I doing this? It's like, well, here's why you're doing this. And anyone want to like debate me or not? Not that I would want to like debate an athlete, because they're usually don't care, you know, the ones that do become a strength coach. But going back to how I've changed, I've probably changed I've changed my goals in life, what I want in life, because back then it was like D1 strength coach, college strength, all I care about is athletics. And now I'm like, I don't care, man. Like, it's sports. Who cares? Who cares, man? And I have the online business, and I just sell ebooks, and I make enough money selling ebooks. And those are things people that want to get bigger will buy clusters. People who want to jump higher will buy vertical jump. People who want to fix their knee pain will buy jumper's knee. And those are people seeking out me for my resources, my resources that I've spent years on, that are quality resources, and they pay me for it. And I don't have to deal with the politics. And I don't have to deal with, okay, if you have 5 days a week, here's a 1-hour training session, because I know that I'm going to be thinking during that 1-hour training session, I'm going to be like, could I be doing something else? You know, I know I'm going to be thinking that. There's no way I'm not. And just think what if I had to run like 6 hours of a training session in a day? There's no way. I would probably be like, I want to go hiking. I want to go find, like, you know, I want to go see something else in the world than be in this weight room for 40 hours this week and do that for the next 10 years, you know? So I don't know, man. I don't know the answer, but right now that's the way I feel. Of if I have to give 1 hour or 4 hours to a training session or something, It would actually feel like a waste of time. And I think for me, Max Schmarzo, Strong by Science, he's a guy that I met up with last year, and I did a podcast with him. He works, I think, with 2 guys in person. And I think he has it set up where him and that guy really connect. Like they really understand what's going on and they're on the same page. So for me to look at training someone, that is a really attractive idea for me, of if there was someone that was similar to me and we could really relate and it's all about improving sports performance, then I would go, and I would think that 1 hour session would be pretty enjoyable. But if I'm going to go run a team of 20 athletes where maybe 2 people are on the same page and the other and 15 are just going through the motions, and then there's like 2 or 3 that are like just hate the whole training process, like I don't want to put myself through that. And I'm 31 now, and the point I got when I was at Youngstown, I think I left at 27, I would deal with stuff with athletes or with coaches, and the athletes, because I had pretty good relationship with the majority of the athletes, they'd be like, you should do this, you should do that, and I'm like, nah, this is the job for a 24-year-old. I don't need this anymore. I'm sorry, but I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know if that's maturing, or if that is every year that I live, I realize I'm going to die someday. And do I really want to deal with this? Do I really want to deal with this drama, or with these politics with coaches and administrators? I don't think so, man. I'm going, and that's a hard thing. That is a hard thing to. You said that you want to be uncomfortable. You need to be uncomfortable. But if you get too uncomfortable, you get overwhelmed and you completely shut down. And that was kind of my experience with Brian. Was when we first met, he completely challenged everything that I knew for the last 10 years. And it was really uncomfortable for me. Luckily, it was Christmas break, so I went home for Christmas. And I remember going to see my friend. I was just like, dude, this woman's soccer coach, man, like I hate this guy. Like I don't know how this is gonna work. They should just take me off the team. I don't want to work with this team. It was too much. But when you have those breaks, so you can actually reflect on it, then you have a chance to kind of learn from it or grow from it. And yeah, the whole idea of like you're going to die someday is overwhelming, and it's really hard to get through your brain. But I think if you could keep a little bit of that, or at least think about it every day, I think you'll look at things and be like, why am I doing this? Should I really be doing this? And yeah, I think when you're younger, when you're 20 years old or 25 years old, it's enough. Strength and conditioning, you becoming a strength conditioning coach and managing a team, it is enough. Probably for your ego, you're happy enough to be like, look at this logo that I got on my shirt. But I think once you reach a certain point, you'll mature in life and you'll be like, I don't need this anymore.
I've heard when you hit 30, it hits home that you're going to die someday. So maybe that had an impact, a slight impact. But you read my mind, man, because I was going to ask you, is it the personal aspect of the coaching that you miss the most? Given that I've heard you talking before and you touched on it there, you do not miss the politics of sport, because I know in America anyway, it seems that the authoritative head coaching role is still very much in play in a number of different sports. I know it's probably changing the same as it is worldwide, but you can't really have a huge impact on the team if you have no control or no input into what's going on the field. They're just with you when they're in the gym, and that's it. So is it the personal aspect that you miss? And are you basically now saying, 2 big time athletes, come to me, Jake Tuura, and I will work with you?
I guess I do kind of miss that. But I'm also like, I think you can look at I always looked at other strength coaches, and when I was at college, and I would go visit other strength coaches and see how they run sessions. I'd go and watch like an hour session, which now would be like, why would I do that? It's all the same stuff. It's all going to be the same stuff. And if they're a cool strength coach, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm just doing this, there's no secrets. And if they're a guy who's like, if a guy who's less cool, I guess there's a better term for that, but he'd be like, tell me all the secrets that he does and everything. Yeah, we do this because it's like, dude, get out of here. Like, but you see different personalities as coaches. And I think when you're younger, it's always like you see someone who, quote, you'll be like a good coach, quote unquote. a great strength coach, and they might have good relationships with the athletes, or they might carry themselves a certain manner, and then you try to become that person, and you have man, I wish I could think of examples right now, but just think of strength coaches or coaches in general that athletes just love. Like they have a personality where athletes will do anything for them.
Buddy Morris.
Yeah. And then you see that, and then it's like, you might not have that personality. That might not be you as a coach, but you're going to be like, I need to be more like that. And it's probably good to push the boundaries of your personality and try to expand a little bit. But it's like, I think as you try enough of that, you see what works and what doesn't work, because a lot of that's not going to be congruent. You're going to come across, you're going to say something or act a certain way, and athletes will just pick up on it and be like, and I worked with a lot of female athletes, and I think females pick up on those type of lack of congruencies a lot more than males. But I just realized, like, there are a lot of things in life, or a lot of probably athletes too, personality. I just don't care, man. I'm like, I think I worked with women's swim, men's and women's swim, but I'm like, it's not for me. I'm not your strength coach. You probably need someone to encourage you and compromise more for you, and I'm like, that's not me. I just don't care. Like, I am the way that I am. And if I'm going to be myself, be sincerely myself as a coach, I will have some athletes who will love me and some athletes who will hate me, and then a lot who will kind of be in the middle. If I'm just going to be compromising all the time and changing my personality to fit in with this person, that person, nah, I don't think that's right. And you see a lot of that, though. It's like you're not really there's so much compromise and so much like not knowing who you are as a coach, that it's like, you don't even know, athletes don't know. And it's like, you're not a personality that anyone really like respects, I guess, or can be like, okay, sorry, let me paint this picture, is having a meeting. So let's just say you meet a female at like some venue or something. And it's like, if you can go and just be yourself, they will have an opinion about you of like, I really like this guy, or I really hate this guy. But usually it's like, you're trying to find them. And then it's like, if you got their opinion after like a 5-minute interaction, they'll be like, oh, he's okay. He's pretty cool. You know, it's like, but if you could be yourself, you're going to be on one end of the spectrum. And I think for myself, I'm a basketball guy. So I love basketball. So it's like, I would train basketball players, and I think I can connect better with basketball players. And I'm on that side of knowing more of the sport, going through the sport, playing the sport, how the weight room stuff affects it. So like, give me basketball, don't give me soccer, don't give me swim, don't give me whatever. I'll do my part with them and try to do the best I can, and maybe look at the sport and the demands, and then try to go from there. But man, knowing the sport and playing the sport, I think is so underappreciated or undervalued. I would love for it to be like, basketball strength coach, go play basketball 5 days a week with the guys. See what that's like, you know, and then see if your weight room session stays the same. Or do this, go play pickup basketball at the LA Fitness or whatever big gym you have. Go play pickup basketball 3 days a week, and see if you're going to keep the same lifting program for the guys that you keep for them, or see if you keep the same volume. You know,
see if you're doing extensive plyos after doing that 3 times a week.
Do you need? Yeah, man. And it's been addressed so many times, like endlessly, a lot of times, that like, it's one of those things again where I'm like, we're still arguing this, man. It's not worth it. Is it worth our time?
The jumps. Are you talking about the jumps now, or are you talking about
anything
just in
like
general?
That? Anything, yeah.
Oh yeah, I get you.
Like it's all been in the last. I guess we have made a lot of progress in the last few years in the strength conditioning field, but it's like, we're still arguing about these things, man. You know, still arguing about these things that are just like, you know, what I'm going to do. So really going off topic all the time on this podcast, but one of my friends from Switzerland, I trained him in college, and then another one of my friends, they both play basketball overseas, but if they're back home this summer, what I want to do, I want to get them on a podcast and because they know me pretty well. They know what I do with the training, with the strength conditioning. They've gone through a number of strength coaches, but I don't think that's done enough, and probably because a lot of athletes are just dumb as a rock that you don't want to get them on a podcast. But these guys are intelligent guys that I would love for more podcasts to have athletes and be like, what is your experience like with the weight room? And because I know that they're going to say some good things, but they're also going to say some really stupid things where they'd be like, oh, you did this glute bridge exercise, and the strength coach's intention of the glute bridge exercise was like, maybe we're going to do this for the horizontal force production and it's going to help speed, and the athlete was like, yeah, really good for getting me a big set of glutes, I guess, it's like, it's like, come on, we're here to make you better at basketball. It's like, and they might be looking at it though, like, no, I'm here to get big. I'm here to get big. And if you can communicate all day long, and you can make force velocity curves and everything, but there are still a number of athletes who step in the weight room and they completely shut down from getting better at sport. That's not necessarily a problem, but I'm just saying there's going to be a disconnect.
Yeah, well, like, man, I have conversations on this podcast with athletes, and what you realize is a lot of them have a fair idea what's going on in the weight room, probably more so than a lot of strength conditioning coaches that do very well as well. So they know what they're doing. So you can't really bullshit most of them. And you said earlier as well about the authenticity thing. I think obviously you can try and play everybody and be this different person for everyone. And maybe you have to be slightly different, but you're going to build a better connection with some of the athletes naturally, and you're going to have more chance of doing that with more of them if you're authentically yourself.
Yeah. So I was going to say this earlier, but you said, could I go back to college and then apply all these things? And I think the strength, the knowledge of the way that I look at my job, because it used to be everyone gets more explosive, that's what was the big thing. Everyone gets more explosive, everyone gets stronger. And now it's like, okay, it's a tennis player, who cares? Like that's, or it's a basketball player, who cares? Or it's a golfer, and I think the big thing that I could have done going back is, back when I had that job, that full-time job that was my only source of income. And then I already had online a little bit, but then things started happening for me. Like, I got on podcasts, I started putting out YouTube videos, different content, writing, and then I started making money. And then online made more money than I did in college. And then I'm like, that was one of the points. And then I talked to a number of other strength coaches who got me to quit. Like Joel Smith, I don't know who else, just a number of guys. I was just like, I don't know where I feel. They're like, dude, you got to quit. And I was like, okay. And then I finally pulled the plug. And then I had about 2 months I was giving to the university before I was done, because they were not going to hire another strength coach. And I was spent a lot of time with the women's basketball, and they were having their season start at Thanksgiving. So I was like told coach, okay, I'll stick it out till Thanksgiving, which was 2 months. So I was effective, man. I was really effective at that point because I didn't care. I didn't need the money. If I could have went into that job not caring as much and not needing the money, I could have been really effective, because when a coach said something, I could have called them out and been like, I disagree. Or when an athlete did something a certain way, I'd be like, you're kicked out of the weight room, instead of like, oh, I need to make sure that it doesn't cause an issue with administration. It's like I could have had standards and boundaries, and I would not let anyone cross them, because I didn't need the job. But I think the field has so many people that want to work for very little or for free, that it's like they want jobs so much. They're so needy that you can't be effective. You can't be effective when you're needy. There's a phrase, I don't know what the phrase, it was the hungry don't get fed. That was a phrase that I heard once, which was like,
you can't as well. Like, we've said it there as well. There's so many coaches now. It's like there's loads, and there's a finite amount of teams. And what happens a lot is a coach is offered a job, they take the job, they're not the right person for the job at all. And then they don't see improvements in the athletes, because, as you said there, you're working with a swim team and you're trying your hardest, but I just do not fit in this hole. Like, I'm a square peg in a round hole. I would be better off, probably not financially, but being able to say, look, I'm not the right person for this job. This is the right person for this job. Give them the job. Everybody would be doing better as a result, and then go and looking for a job yourself. But because everybody is paid fucking nothing, we all are in search of money constantly to just make ends meet, I guess. So we just are constantly clinging on to, oh, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that. So like, we need to probably look to demand more from our employers and from our peers in terms of what we're going to get rewarded with financially. And only by having that approach that you just said of like, I'm going to try and do my best, but I'm not going to compromise on my boundaries and my principles and my core values, is that going to happen? But at the same time, if you do that, you're going to be more likely to be let go. And I'm going to use an example of somebody who's obviously a fantastic coach, like brilliant in what they do, but just because of competition and just because of the way administrators work and all. And I'm sure this is somebody that told you to quit your job as well. Like Kerr Winham Flat, when he went over to the States, like he was doing the best thing for that environment. The players all loved him. His rest of his performance staff loved him, but just roadblock. We don't want you to do it this way. Why can't you do it this way? Well, do you want me to do the job to the best of my ability, or do you want me to do it within your constraints? Because I can do one, but I can't do both.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a guy that actually first put it in my brain, because I got our first phone call ever. I was like, "Hey, how do you like it over there at William & Mary?" He's like, "I hate it, dude." I was like, "What?" Because that was one of the first moments where I was looking at it and I was like, "Wow, this job does kind of suck." But I will say, and I'm obviously biased because I think I'm the best coach in the world. I mean, who wouldn't think that? But I worked with that swim team, but I'm like, no one's going to be able to replace me, you know? Like, I'm not a very good swim strength coach, but like, come on, guys, you're not going to get a better strength coach, you know? But dude, I had I wish I could have experienced that, go into that job and then just be carefree and be effective, but it didn't happen. And again, I don't think I could go back and be willing to sacrifice. Okay, I'm going to get there at 6 a.m. and I'm going to leave at 6 p.m. and I'm going to not, like, I don't need the money. Why would I go do that? And I'm free now, man. I can do whatever I want. So, but I had a time with our women's basketball coach. Great dude. I love the guy. We took him a while to get along with me, but we started to see eye to eye, and probably because I had a following online, it helped me. And he would like look at my Instagram and see that people were supporting me, like the social proof, you know, which helps for sales. And I think that's another issue. Like a lot of the frustrations for a strength coach dealing with athletes or dealing with all these other people is you just suck at sales. You're a really bad salesman and everything is sales. And I didn't appreciate that for years because I was going to get into like personal training, and that's like all sales. And then I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to train athletes. You know, I don't want to deal with the sales and all this. It's like, dude, everything is sales. You have to sell people on everything. So if you're frustrated with the way, because a person doesn't listen to you or the communication is bad, it's your fault. You suck at communicating. You suck at selling your ideas to them. If you think you're right, then if you think you're right and they're an idiot for not listening, is like, there are so many levels that you're missing. And look at it this way. You're a strength coach coming into an office of a head coach. First of all, you're coming into their office, which is probably 10 times nicer than your office. You're sitting in your chair. You're making 1/10 of the money they're making. So that's already going on in their brain and their thought process. Probably, I wouldn't say all coaches. And that coach is maybe like 30, 40 years old. You might be 25 years old. Why are they going to listen to you? They also see you're like a meathead guy. You know nothing about the sport. They know the sport. They know all the mentors. They probably have worked at big universities, really successful programs. They don't care about you. Who knows where you were at, you know? So all those things go into sales. All those things go into communication because we have cognitive biases, and the brain doesn't listen to the facts. They listen to all this stuff that is underlying the facts of who is it coming from, you know, like probably 50 different things that the strength coach is like not even aware of. It's like, you need to go read some books to become aware of this, and then you'll be a better communicator. So so the story I was going to say, our women's coach, it was like before the season, it was like my last 2 months, you know, so. And we were COVID, we had to train in our boxes. We taped out boxes. So everyone had to not touch the same equipment and everything, and wash it down and wear your masks. And then after they get done with that, they go play basketball on the court, full contact basketball. Doesn't make any sense. So that's another thing, man. Like, if that didn't make any sense. and I'm working in that environment. That doesn't make any sense. We need to really make sure they're not touching the same stuff here, and then they can go on the basketball court and play contact and touch the same basketball. That doesn't make any sense. And I can argue with that, and it's going to go nowhere. So it's almost like, again, man, I'm going to die someday. I'm spending 8 hours a day. I'm spending 8 hours a day making sure that people stay in their boxes and they don't touch the same equipment and I clean everything. No, that's wrong. So, but our women's coach come in the weight room one time and we were bench pressing. We hadn't bench pressed like all summer because we had to stay in our boxes. And I always pair exercises like a lower body and upper body. And we have 6 racks, and it just never worked to do a bench press. Because if we did a bench press, we would have to do like an exercise. Like we couldn't do a squat because the bench is already set up there. Couldn't do an RDL because the bench is already, so we were bench pressing. I think we had the girls had like a 10 and a 5 on each side, most of the girls. And
that's pounds as well for Irish listeners.
So 45, 60, like 75 pounds of on the barbell. But we were doing high reps, like 10 reps or something. And coach comes in and he was like, how many girls bench 135, which would be a 45 on each side? And I was like, I don't know. But I'm like, I think we both know it's not really that correlated to basketball performance, And then he was like, well, because he was at another university, he was like, at my old university, we had 4 girls benching 135. And I think they made the national championship or something. It was Division 2. Or they made the Final Four. He's like, yeah, I had 4 girls and we made the Final Four. And then I was like, okay. And I was like, did you know that Kevin Durant, one of the best basketball players in the world, can't bench press 185 for a single rep? And then he kind of just brushed it off. And then I was like, oh, actually, we do have a 135 bencher. It's our worst post player. And actually, I think we had two 135 benchers. But then he left. He left the weight room, and it never went anywhere. It was just kind of like we never brought it up again. It wasn't like a bad interaction between us. But dude, I was looking at that. I'm like, if I had not told this university that I was leaving and I had income somewhere else, I would not have had that conversation with him. He would have said, how many girls bench 135? And I would have been like, 1. And then he's like, well, I had 4 and then I would have changed all my programming and been like, girls, we all got to bench press 135. What is wrong with your upper body strength? You got to get on a specific diet. Like, dude, it is so stupid. But
did the ball go in the hoop?
Oh, exactly. But dude, I'm looking, because I can look at my evolution of later on, and I wish I could say that it didn't come from financially, that I made money outside of it, or I had other stuff going on that I didn't need that. I wish I could have just had that evolution by itself, but I don't know how you do that. But I'm like, dude, every other strength coach in that building would have had that conversation with that coach and then been stressed out for the next month about getting everyone's bench press numbers up. It is sad, man. It is so sad.
But the issue with the sales, and like, I was going to interject, and then I was thinking, well, this would be so ironic if I interjected this train of thought and then came with this point. But the issue with sales with strength and conditioning coaches is we all love the sounds of our own voice. And you and me both know, if you're going to sell anything, it's not your mouth, it's your ears. You need to pay attention to. Just shut the fuck up and listen to what's being said, and then pose some decent questions like you did with the Kevin Durant incident. And nobody understands that, because we're all so egotistical. And I know this, I know this, I know this. You go in and you just throw a barrage of information at these coaches. And by the second, third, fourth point, they're going like, oh, get me out of this interaction. Like, what is he talking about? Just listen to them, find their pain point, figure out what they need to work on, ask decent questions, and then have them come to a conclusion that they think they came to, but you really guided them to, essentially. And I think CARE does actually explain that very, very well. And like, that is a strange one as well, because we've been just talking about being yourself and doing all that, but at the same time, you've got to be yourself, but you've got to also deal with every interaction in the best way that you can to lead to an outcome that you want to achieve, I suppose. And that's kind of paradoxical in a way sometimes.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that everything that I have ever said is paradoxical. It's like, you need to be this way, but then it's like, well, you could also be the exact opposite way, And like, you need to do this for rehab. Well, you could also do the exact opposite. And I think
I already spat my water all over the camera there, mate.
I think the reason things work, though, I think the reason usually why things work is because the whole experience of life is just like so confusing, and people just look for certainty, that if you can give certainty, you will get paid for it and people will love you. So if they're like, oh, my patellar tendon hurts, and I'm like, here is the specific program to do, here is the certainty for how to rehab your patellar tendon, a lot of people would be like, thank you, and they'll get better, because look at what they've done before and it's just been awful, or they've just been missing a huge piece. And then you have the few people who they get the certainty and they just don't apply it because they suck, they're lazy, they're like, they think that there's some other thing that they need to do, but I would say in general, it's like, yeah, dude, everything is a paradox, but if people want results, people need some certain program, or they need someone to have a higher level of certainty than they do that they can then follow.
Very well put, mate. And like, I like the way that you said they need a certain program, not the certain program. Like it can be any number of programming or exercise variations within that. And I was going to say as well, I found probably more so with the female athletes that I work with than the male ones, but to a degree, both. They will come and they'll ask me which variation, let's just say squat or deadlift or whatever, which one should I do? And I'll say, I don't care, whatever you want. And they'll say, no, but which one's best? And I'll say, I don't care, like, do whichever one you want, like, because the one that you enjoy doing is the one you'll get the most results out of. And sometimes they just won't be happy with that. So then I've come to a stage now where I'll put a list of exercises of like ones that they can pick, and they'll typically pick the first one. But actually with the male athletes, if I put a list of 4 exercises, there will be 1 or 2 in the group that will come up and say that they can't do any of those 4 and they need another one. And that's okay as well. I don't care, like, do whichever one you want. But more so with the female athletes, I found that. Have you found something similar like that? Or is it different in the States? Or because sometimes they're looking for a little bit more certainty, I find.
I don't think I ever did that, of like giving options like that. No, it just makes me think of, because I had, when I first wrote the Jumpers Knee protocol, which like a lot of people got so much benefit out of it, but the problem that there was no specific intervention. There was no like, here's the exactly how to, yes. Because I interviewed all those tendon researchers, and they're like, there can never be a recipe. Like, rehab cannot be recipe based. And I would always think that. And then I'm like, no, you need to think of your own rehab, And then people would buy the book, and then they would message me, DM or email. And they'd be like, okay, what exactly do I do? And then I just send them paragraphs of like, here's exactly what to do, and then that just told me I need to update with a specific plan. So then I sat down and I did that, and now I have that specific plan. So it's like, there are people that I think the individual differences of people is like, some people can see a concept and then be like, okay, I'm going to go apply this and be so excited about it. And then some people are like, they need a specific plan. And then some people have the specific plan. They're like, well, I needed to cater to my individual differences. And it's like, so anyways, I think that I have created that, but it's been a pain. And actually that's taken me probably 2-3 years to accept that now, and be like, there are differences with people. Some people are going to be good with all the science stuff and they'll know exactly what to do. Some people will be really good with the plan. And then some people are like, they need a more individual approach, but sorry, I don't work one-on-one to help you with that individual approach. So like, figure it out. At least not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now.
Heads with the 2-word answers on Instagram, which is absolutely key. I'd say that generates more noise for you and more eyes on the page than any other type of marketing. And it's just,
well, here's the thing,
you're being authentic as well when you do
every time, maybe not every time, yeah, it could be, but a number of times people have asked me a question like that, and I've started typing out a paragraph, and then I just delete the whole thing, and I'm like, give you 1 or 2 words. I'm like, no, like, because man, it's I think it is it's certainty, man. It's certainty. Like this person is asking me a question, and because of the way that they frame the question, they clearly are less intelligent than me at the subject matter. And because now I know, like we've talked about earlier, is the majority of people, you look at what they've done in the past for their rehab, you look at what they've done, it's awful, it's terrible. So it's like, do they need me? Do they need another paragraph of stuff? No, they need someone to tell them, dude, go and train. Here's your answer. Go and load the thing, go and train, and you'll figure it out over time. I actually think it's one of the big problems of having Instagram or having immediate access to coaches who are really knowledgeable, that you can just go in the DMs and ask them a question and hope you get an answer right away. Is back when I got into it, man, that wasn't available at all. Like you went and you looked at videos, you went on YouTube and watched videos, and you could type a comment in the YouTube thing. They're not going to answer your question there. So you couldn't ask questions back then. But my first 5 years of training, I couldn't ask a single coach. I mean, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. Like my high school was 15 kids in my class. So like I didn't have a strength coach. I had no one guiding me. I had no one in my immediate area. And I didn't have internet. My parents, we grew up in the woods. We didn't have internet till I got into college. But I couldn't ask questions. It was like I had to buy programs. I had to go online and research myself. I couldn't ask a specific question to anyone. I had to figure it out for myself. And I think that's probably why, not to say like I'm an amazing coach, but like, or amazing level of knowledge, but it's like, I think that's a reason why I have the level of knowledge, or I have the perspective that I do, that I think people value, is because I had spent the 5 years just experimenting and not being able to ask a question. And man, that's what I did sometimes with people. They're like, hey, how should I increase my vert, or how should I, it's like, go and train for 5 years and then ask a question. Don't,
But that's the issue. And we're going to bring it back to actually earlier in the podcast. And I was going to bring up this point. With most people, what they'll do is they'll hear rest. And as you said, like when they get that inflammation, that pain, and they're told rest, they'll rest. And then they won't do anything else. They'll just rest. And then they won't actually go and push eventually. So after you rest, you have to actually try and force an adaptation in order for the problem to go away. And only by going past what you're capable of doing and by having it flare a little bit again, will you figure out how far you can push yourself then the next time. And that is training. Like that's training. That's what you do. You do something till you can't tolerate it and do it anymore. Then you take a break, then you go back and you do it, but a little bit higher intensity, a little bit more of it. And you could teach that to a monkey, but still you're getting messages coming through from people that aren't training hard enough to even try and solve a problem, I guess.
Yeah. That's how I fixed the, cause you say like, it can't be recipe based. It needs to be individual, figure it out and everything. And man, I wish I had created the recent training program, Jumpers one. I should have created that 2 years ago, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that's just laziness, man. A lot of that's like not being motivated, not sitting down and doing the thing, doing everything in the world, but sitting at my computer and doing it, which was the only thing that I needed to do. Like I wake up in the morning, I don't have a 9-to-5 job. The only thing I need to do today is sit down on my computer and write this training program. And I just wouldn't do it. And then weeks and months, and I finally did it. I finally sat down and did it. But you're always at a point where I'm like, I was always like, I want to do another podcast with a tendon person, and because every podcast adds another layer, adds another thing that I need to address. But I think that End of King podcast for me was really, really changing. That just simplified everything. All these little things he said of like, start where you are and like, look at where you are now and then where you want to be and address all the functional deficits along the way. A number of things he said, but going back to like the kid who's always just like, they have so many questions. And if you're dealing with the tendon pain, you're going to have a ton of questions. But the solution, I guess, in the knee pain world is probably like the ATG system to say, we have standards, like here are your standards. And I completely disagree with that. I completely disagree. These are made up standards. And actually some of those exercises just won't agree well with people. I disagree that there needs to be standards. I think you can have some things like if you squat 1 times body weight and you're trying to rehab your patellar tendon, like that's weak. You should probably squat a little bit more weight than that. But I'm not going to say for sure, because you can have people who squat 0.5 times body weight and have patellar tendon pain and get that up to like 0.6 and they're fine. So that is a thing. So you can't say across the board, here are the standards. So my fix for all the questions, all of it, whatever individual differences people have, is that it's on them. Because I said it's rehab is based off of pain and function, and your rehab is based off of your pain responses. So you wake up, you have 2 options for pain responses: the single leg decline squat. You can see where that's at every day. That's okay, but I would just do next morning. You wake up in the morning, how does your tendon feel? Go walk around for a little bit. If it feels more painful and more stiff, that means what you did yesterday was not well tolerated. So that's how you always know, is like, is this exercise good or is this exercise bad? Well, try it on a given day. Wake up the next morning. If that was the only thing that you changed, wake up the next morning. Does it feel more pain and more stiff? Then it probably wasn't well tolerated. Or decrease the load a little bit and then try it again. So it's always like you get a 24-hour response, because if you look at it in the next morning, you're always going to learn something the next 24 hours with your rehab. But then you don't just want to base it off of pain, because if you base it off of pain, you want to decrease next morning pain, do nothing. Just chill, just like, just rest. You won't have next morning pain. So you have to base it off of function too, because you're trying to get back to the function of sport. So I gave functional benchmarks at the end of each chapter of like, if you're doing the isometric phase, your functional benchmarks are to have a more evened out quadriceps, and then look at the muscle mass too. The muscle mass should be pretty evened out. If you have unilateral patellar tendinopathy, like those are pretty consistent. You should have the quad is going to get smaller and the quad is going to get weaker. So try to balance that out. And then the calf thing, like the David Gray foam roller bridge, I find that thing is like hugely effective, way more than I do soleus raises and gastroc raises, but that's just for like the connection of like working your calf again and maybe getting some muscle mass in there. But the foam roller bridge is just freaking huge. Like that thing it's so effective. And there's a benchmark there. Like you need to get good at the foam roller bridge. And then it's the isos, like the single leg stand, isometric lunge. You need to make sure that your strength endurance, like you're able to hold these positions for a length of time. And there's a number of other things that hits, like adductors, hamstring, inside of your hip, outside, a number of things, ankles too. So like those are the benchmarks in the ISO phase. Then I gave benchmarks in a lifting phase, benchmarks in a store and release phase. So it's like all of these questions people have is like, you have the answers. Your body will tell you the answers. Look at your pain responses and then look at how your function is. It's like, okay, your quad strength, like let's take myself, my quad strength is usually amazing. Like that is not a functional deficit of mine. If you look at me hop, if I have patellar tendon pain, my hopping is awful. That is my functional deficit that I need to address. Yes, maintain my quadricep strength, but I got to do a hopping progression. I got to make sure that I can do like a pogo hop and then alternating and then a single leg, and then I can transfer that into more things that are going to look like basketball or look like dunking. But it's like, look at functional deficits, and if someone has patellar tendon pain, there's always going to be obvious functional deficits. And actually,
and there'll be multiple as well, probably.
Yeah, you kind of hope that they come in with like all the functional deficits, because it's like, as those improve, the pain is also going to improve with. So like pain and function are just going to go hand in hand. And it's like, if someone comes in with amazing quadriceps, amazing hopping ability, then you just like, and they still have patellar tendon pain, you're like, okay, like let's keep training, like maybe something will figure itself out. And also too, maybe you'll just kind of desensitize to it. Like that could also be a thing. Who knows? You could just desensitize to the pain. But somewhere I might go in a case like that, if the function looks amazing and the person still has some pain, it'd be like, what's your pain tolerance like? Or like, they're like, it's like a 3 out of 10. It's like, why are you not happy with a 3 out of 10? Like you should be able to go and do everything you need to do with a 3 out of 10, especially with the warm-up effect. If you had a 3 out of 10 normally, and then you go and warm up, that should go to a 0 out of 10 and you're fine. And then the next morning might be a little painful and stiff, but like, that's just something you probably got to go through. And also look at all the pro athletes, or all the athletes at the top of the game. You think they don't feel a 3 out of 10 every day? Like they probably feel a 5 or a 7 out of 10. Like
Try guarding LeBron and see how you feel the next day. I think Dave puts that really well, though, in the way that he describes, like, can we do a little bit more training and have it feel the same the next day, not worse? But like, if you rest completely and it feels better, we haven't achieved a positive result, unless that's what we're trying to do, just reduce the pain so that we can then get after it again. But you have to actually stress any injury, like as Dan Pfaff would say, like you can't just do nothing. You're not going to improve from that, I guess. He wouldn't say, he'd say a lot more eloquently than that now, to be fair. But I like the way you're talking about metrics as well in the rehab process and focusing on specific things. And I think, man, you should definitely come over to Ireland and go to Santry and just go through their knee rehab or their knee testing protocol, because that's I know that's where, not where David is, that's where Ende is. Yeah. So like, I know we're saying there that like ATG don't like their metrics are arbitrary and they've just come up with them out of nowhere. But with Santry, like their metrics are research based and then based on every person that passes through their doors. So they give an average and they give an elite standard to reach. And it is like, you don't have to reach the elite standard and everything. But it might be a good idea to at least get past the average and the goal, I guess. And then they give you advice around your training around that on how to approach it, which is like probably the most rational way to approach rehab than just like throwing exercises at people when they come back then in 2 to 3 weeks. Are you feeling better or worse? I'm feeling worse. Okay, here's some more exercises. do those.
Yeah. I bought his, he had a course on physio tutors. I went through that and it kind of touched on like some of those, basically his rehab process. But I think he put together the patellar, Achilles, like groin. I think like that's what's cool is you have all the different diagnosis, but it's like, again, man, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And if it's a basketball player and you're rehabbing Achilles, patellar, like the end of the rehab or towards the end, it's probably going to look the same because you're getting back to basketball. You might want to address, like everything matters. If you have a patellar tendon pain, the quads, the hamstrings, the calves, the adductors, the glutes, all of it matters. It matters for an Achilles too. It matters for a groin too. It might matter more or less depending on the person, but it's like rehab. I spent so long looking at like differential diagnosis, everything. It's like, man, if the anterior knee is overloaded, it's probably overloaded for the same reasons, regardless of the presentation, unless it's like maybe like a plica, because a plica is like just like this weird flap that gets aggravated and you got like maybe go in and get surgery or get it, whatever. So like there's some weird things that could go on, but it's the loading issue. One thing that's crazy though is like the patellofemoral cases, which I would just treat patellofemoral, jumper's knee, just go about it the same way. Again, it's based off of pain and function. So if something doesn't work for you, you change it. It's not that the diagnosis is needs to be accurate and that's why something hurts or doesn't hurt. It's based on your own individual pain responses. So if you do an exercise and it's really bad tolerated, do a different one or do it easy, do it lighter until you adapt better. But the patellofemoral cases are interesting because it's like they've done research where they will put high patellofemoral joint forces on, say, I think it was like stepping down a hill or stepping downstairs with weight and the likelihood for it to provoke pain. And that wasn't even like that. The level of patellofemoral joint forces wasn't even correlated to pain. It was more around the person's like fear avoidance, their fear of exercise. So the patellofemoral cases, because it's just this dull pain that exists all the time, those people can really be affected with the psychological factors, like the biopsychosocial model. The psychological factors of them being fearful are crazy important. You also get that with jumper's knee, but with jumper's knee, it's more like if you warm up, it goes away. If you warm up with patellofemoral, it might not go away. It might just kind of linger around. But that's what's interesting, because going back to like the ATG split squat, that's an exercise where I look at it and be like, that's some pretty high patellofemoral joint forces. You're basically just shoving your knee like into the back of your knee, like your femur in the back of your kneecap. I would always be like, that's probably not good for patellofemoral pain. But I wouldn't say that, because some people could actually be okay with it. And because of the psychological, the fear avoidance, you might need to take patellofemoral people and put them in positions that are high patellofemoral joint forces to get them, like, give them exposure therapy to going through that, because it's like, it's uncomfortable, but it's like you might need to go through some of that to rehab. So I could never say like that's a bad exercise, end of story. You can't really ever say that.
No,
I did recently say that on my Instagram with the single leg decline squat, because if you're going to use that for a loading intervention, it's like nobody is going to do that and feel like a big hit on their quadriceps, a big like muscular hit in their quadriceps. They're just going to feel it in their knee joint or in their tendon. And I'm like, you're going to do an exercise just to aggravate, like high likelihood to aggravate and not get much of the use out of the quadriceps. If you did a leg extension, you're getting crazy amount of quadriceps and you're not going to feel the knee joint. So it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But if someone wants to go and do it, go ahead and do it.
If they're doing nothing
I just
else,
recommend it
as well. If you're doing nothing else,
yeah.
Then
if you're doing nothing else, then go ahead and do that. Yeah, but that's always the argument. That would be an argument that I would like support, but it's also like, really,
yeah. But we know that some people aren't doing anything else, I guess. And like, as you just said there,
I think too that exercise was used back in the day, back in probably like the 90s, back when patellar tendon rehab was get to a 5 out of 10 pain. Like your rehab should be painful. You should try to push to that point. And that was an exercise that was amazing to provoke anterior knee pain. So it's like they use that exercise all the time. And again, you take that intervention, you take that group versus an intervention where they do nothing. And I guess you probably see some gain because you're loading the anterior knee, and it is a loading issue. But yeah, that was just a thing from like way back in the day. Whereas now you have the researchers, like that whole long patellar tendinopathy paper by all those tendon researchers. I've went through that thing probably like 100 times. I always go back and find something new in there. It's just crazy. It's like they use that for the pain provocation test, and they just recommend like a 3 out of 10 pain is like acceptable during exercise, but you shouldn't really push past that. But yeah, it is weird to look that back in the day, it was all like provoke pain. And now it's like, take it a little bit easier. And I think now the approach is better because
it is definitely better.
Yeah.
But that
approach definitely did not work for me back when I was trying to rehab. But that's an N equals 1. I don't want to use that and apply it to everyone. But it's like that approach didn't work very well for me.
But you know very well, some people will listen to that and they will use N equals 1 and they'll use that and they'll think that is gospel, I guess. But all of what we just touched on there comes back to kind of like overarching principle. Like when people ask, what do you do as a strength and conditioning coach? And I typically say, now it's obviously a broadcast claim, is I increase confidence in my athletes. And how do you increase confidence? Through graded exposure and through training and improving their physical function. And I know that's very broad, obviously. They have to get better at what they're doing too. But if they increase their confidence in their ability to do things or execute their sporting actions and do those sporting actions, they're going to be more likely of doing that on the field, on the court, etc. And confidence only comes through the training and through doing the training prerequisite to improving, whether that's skill-based, whether that's output-based, like performance-based. It's all confidence. It's all training. That's what we're trying to do. And obviously I'm not as eloquent as maybe James Smith in the way that I explain that, but I guess you can see where I'm coming from. And I guess that's something that therapists do too. But at the same time, we have people in our industry that may use a language that is a little bit more negative and say, oh, you can't do that. And we've even said it there a couple of times, like, oh, you can't do that. But what can you do? What can you do to improve at the moment? Does a complete rest solve anything? Or can you go ahead and do something else that isn't going to aggravate your injury or make it more painful, that may in fact in turn improve your physical function and improve your recovery and get you back to the field or the court on time, I guess. But that's just my own rambling. I suppose I was afforded one rambling because you've had enough of them so far. Yeah, so mate, like I'm happy enough with what we've got through so far. But before we move on to the quickfire questions, I just wanted to ask you, because I know that you put out content on a multiple different channels and you use pretty similar language and kind of presentation style in all of it. Do you find that one social media channel is better for you in maybe generating noise or getting leads and achieving sales in the end run?
Oh, yeah, probably Instagram, I would say. I mean, I don't track it, so I don't know, but I think that I probably make most of it. Yeah, because what else do I use? Like Facebook is dead. I mean, things go up there, but it's like old people, and I don't really use TikTok.
But your YouTube channel is great. Like, there's
I do use YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. I still need those videos to take off, because it's like I look at, it's like a whatever 2-minute video, but it's like I always put quite a bit of research into just like summing up some research article. And then you look at other like patellar tendon videos, and it's like, wow, this thing sucks. Mine's so much better. But I think that probably has helped. Yeah. And I do have like 50 or 60 videos now, just like free patellar jumpers, knee fixes, and I think they'll stay forever. Like they'll stay up there for as long as YouTube exists. So they'll just continue to accumulate views, and maybe the right person sees it and then they reach out to me and they're like, dude, this is crazy. You have so much knowledge on patellar tendon. Let's connect, maybe that will happen, maybe not. But yeah, I guess it's probably Instagram. I would say it's probably Instagram. And recently though, I've been looking at myself, because I had that ankle injury, and then I just like gained like 5 pounds of fat probably, and then I've actually lost it all. But I'm like, dude, if I jump higher and I get leaner and I keep the same strength and I just look way better, it's like I'll make more money. I'll make way more money, because it's still like my business. I'm not just a dude that like gives information and I'm like, sure, I give information, but it's also like I embody the things that I talk about. So if I can embody everything better, I'll make more money. And I think also people will get better results. Like you talk better programming, optimizing your programming and stuff, and it's like, nah, not at all. Like so much of it, the placebo effect, or people believing in something, or seeing someone being successful based off of programs, like all that stuff feeds so much. Like, dude, another tangent, but like I look at I look at like hypertrophy cluster, like BJP and something. Like I've looked at these things and I've always been like, man, I should go back and update. And I'm like, it does not matter, man. Those things are good. Those things are solid. People are going to get big off of that. People are going to jump high off of that. And for me to be more successful, me updating those programs will do nothing. It will do nothing at all for those to make more money.
But mate, like if people are smart that buy those programs and use those programs, they'll just use the same principles and employ it into their own programming with different stimulus.
Oh, that's exactly it. Yeah. So that's exactly it. I think you talked about like the different
exercise variations and whatnot.
Yeah, I've had or you were saying that like the language that I speak, whatever, and man, that's what's tough, because people, you always talk about what's your market. Like, is your market athletes, or is your market coaches? And if you're going to talk to coaches, you need to speak in a manner that's very scientific and everything. You speak to athletes, you got to dumb it down, everything. And so far, I've been like, no, I'm going to be me. And if I'm more of a science minded, if I'm going to want to read some research article and talk about load tolerance, I'm not going to dumb it down for an athlete. I'm not going to do it. So if an athlete sees my stuff and it's too scientific and they get turned off, good, go away. I have enough people that buy my stuff. I'd rather have the people who connect with me, and there are thousands of those people, so I'm good. So yeah, across all those things, it's like I don't really want to dumb things down. I probably will every once in a while, just to make fun of something, like probably with marketing, people like, dude, I did your program, my knee pain fixed, whatever. I'll put the link and I'll be like, fix knee,
yeah.
So like,
but like, in a way, you've just outlined to us there that you are altering your creation process for content based on whether you're doing it for YouTube and Instagram, because your YouTube channel, here's a research study, here's all the information from it, and it's not generating as much interest as the Instagram. Whereas on the Instagram, you're going, here's me dunking and lifting some heavy shit by my program. So maybe there's something there, like in terms of if you decided to use the same approach. Well, not the same approach because it's a different channel, but a similar approach on YouTube. Maybe you could garner some more interest from people there. But at the same time, you probably have to have that audience already, but you already do, I guess. Maybe they would be interested in some longer format. Here's a day in the life. Here's what me and Tim Riley are going training today, or here's what me and Will are doing. Little vlog style thing, you know?
Yeah, I guess I've thought about it, but it's just I just been like, whatever. You know what I'd like to do? You know what I will do at some point is what I loved is when these guys they make these videos like usually in the winter time. They just go out in the woods and they make a camp out in the woods and they just film the whole process. I love those videos, man. I watch those all the time. Like I grew up in the woods and I used to hate being in the woods and hate going deer hunting and everything. And now I love everything about it. Being in the woods, it's dead quiet. It's cold out, snowing, everything. Yeah, I love those videos. I did have a video. I went out in my field at my parents and I did a delt workout. I did a video like that.
Niche market, but you make money off it, I guess. So we'll move on to.
Here's the thing. Sorry, is like I've had friends who've made videos and they went viral and they're like, dude, this is crazy. I got 1 million views, and I'm like, okay, that would be nice. You know, that'd be pretty cool. But I'm like, I got enough people, man. I got a lot of people who like me. I got a lot of people who appreciate my content. And I'm like, I've paid one time, and I'm going to get better at this. I guess I'll pay money for marketing to make more income, because that's a big thing that I'm lacking right now is the marketing side, like paid marketing, figure that thing out to get more traffic. But
talk to Dave.
I paid for like Facebook ads one time, and then you just get these low quality people like hating on me because I have a man bun or something. You know, it's like, this is really, do I really need this market? You know, but I guess that's just the nature of when you have something that attracts more people. That's just what's going to happen. But
don't try TikTok is my advice, mate. Do not try TikTok.
I have a TikTok. I have some videos.
Do you get much hate?
One of them got like over 100,000 to I don't know how many, but it was because I had like a ponytail and people thought it was a girl dunking. It was like kind of far away, so that's why I went viral. But does it do anything? Like, what does it do? Unless
what's the conversion rate?
Do these people go to my Instagram or go to my website? No, they watch a 2-second video and then they're done. They would probably have to see my face in my video like 50 times before they're like, let me go check out what this guy's about, you know? And so far, I haven't been dedicated enough to want to do that, because you post a video that you think is going to get like hundreds of thousands and it gets 2 views, and it's like, okay, I don't get this.
We touched on it on this week's podcast. That's what always happens. And then you post something that you're like, here's something that I just threw together in the last 10 minutes. And it's like, poop. But anyway, quick fire questions. So the first one is proudest achievement to date.
Oh my, I thought about that because I read that in your question. I'm like, that is so difficult. But you know what I would say is the products that I've created. And then just seeing that having people reach out with results. Like that's for me. I guess I'm pretty proud of that, because when I first got in the field, I had so many guys that I looked up to, like Cal Dietz or any guy on Elite FTS or T Nation. And I'd always be like, you'd think these guys are so much better than you and they're doing something special and they got something secret. And it's like, nah. And now I look at who I've become and it's like, maybe, I don't know if I would say I'm at the level of those guys, whatever. It's a different world now, but I'm like, guys, like I did this and it took me like a decade, but like I'm a person now that has given results to thousands of people for the things that I specialize in. And you know what I can say? Like, it really wasn't that hard of work. It was just 10 years. It was
focused hard work at points, I guess. At points,
and that's the hardest. That I would say though, that is the hardest part, is the focus aspect for myself. And I think the moments when I get off of the social media and stop answering questions from people and stop communicating with everyone, those are the days, or those are the weeks where I have the most intense focus and I can get stuff done. But when I'm replying to emails or I'm replying to messages, it just takes, if I'm in a mode of creating some content and then I go to answer a DM, it completely sidetracks me.
Yeah, it does.
And it actually could completely sidetrack the entire day. And it's done. And I'm like, I'm not being productive anymore today. You know?
I get it. I
Yeah.
think the difference as well when you compare yourself to the old industry and the stalwarts of that is those guys helped multiple athletes and multiple people indirectly because they were always coaching coaches, whereas you are now able to, as a result of the way society is now in the online realm, like you're able to directly have an impact on people. And I suppose as a result of that, you're going to get more people getting in touch with you to tell you that it's had an effect, which is obviously more positive for your own well-being. And I suppose that's why you have such a sense of fulfillment in your career now, because you're doing that consistently, I guess.
Yeah, when they reach out and say your thing changed my life, it's when they reach out and they say like, hey, I'm still having problems. It's like, I don't care. Tell me that it changed your life. That's what I want to hear.
Come back in 3 months, just do this and then come back.
Exactly. And then tell me that the thing worked for you so I can post it on my story.
Favorite athlete of all time?
Reggie Miller.
Oh yeah,
basketball player,
great shooter. Yeah, great shooter.
Reggie Miller.
He's the man.
I'm still a when I play basketball, I just shoot threes.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll drive the ball, but like I'm a bigger guy. No one thinks I'll shoot threes, but I still love shooting.
Indiana, your team, then, are they?
Yeah, but they suck. It's like the same. So I don't really pay attention I don't pay too much attention if they suck. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier that when I was the strength coach, it was like all I cared about was athletics. And now I've reached a point where I'm like, dude, who cares? Who cares? Like it's athletics. But back when I was a kid, man, I love sports so much. Like I paid so much attention. And now I've just kind of been like, what's the point for me to sit there and watch a sport for 3 hours? Unless it's a social thing and I'm with my family or my friends, then it's a great time. But if I'm like by myself, that's kind of lame. Like I could be doing something productive. But it's the same thing with, I'm a Tampa Bay Bucks fan. Yeah. I was a Tampa Bay Bucks fan like 20 years ago. And for all this time, they've sucked, and they got Brady, and they're good again. So now I pay attention to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I was still a fan. I just wasn't paying too much attention. Yeah. But yeah, so Indiana Pacers fan. Reggie was my guy. When he retired, I remember crying that night because I don't know how old I was. Like, it was sad.
What I will say is he's probably my favorite basketball analyst because a lot like he has a good mix of a little bit of humor with a lot of a breakdown of the actual sport. Whereas the way basketball is gone, you just have these polarized figures that it's either all analytics and that this is what's going on, or it's all humor, if you get me. And that's just the way that society is, I guess. Now,
like Skip and Shannon, they start the show and they're like, I'm gonna have an opinion in this way, you gotta have an opinion in this way. They're like, all right, let's go and fight.
I hate that aspect of American TV. Like when I was over there, I was watching it, I was just like, do these guys even believe what they're talking about, or are they just having an argument so more people watch it? Yeah. Maybe that's what's going on in the strength and conditioning industry at the moment. Anyway, moving on. Artists you've been listening to a lot recently.
Artists. Well, I drove through Utah and Colorado, and it was just like mountains, like just so like I don't want to listen to rap music, like noise, bad stuff. So
has to be John Denver, like.
Yeah, I could have, I guess, but my mom had an old like John Denver Christmas album that just was I didn't like it. She would play it all the time, and I was like, I have bad memories of that. It was like John Denver and the Muppets, I think. She would play it for my little sister. And it was like, I don't want to listen to this when I'm like 12 or 13. But Hans Zimmer, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
So
Hans Zimmer, yeah.
So I love
fantastic.
I like post-rock music, man. Sometimes listen to like This Will Destroy You, Explosions in the Sky, stuff like that, but I kind of done with that. I love the like the Dark Knight, Gladiator soundtrack. Those are amazing. And actually there's a YouTube video that I listened to when I was really, really focused, really getting my work done, was it was called Meditating with Bruce Wayne in the Dark Knight. And it's just like an hour long of an instrumental piece.
I'll tell you,
it's amazing though. And he's sitting there with his helmet. It's like that scene where he's about to go fight Bane, I think, but he's just sitting there with his helmet. And then someone wrote in the comments the letter that, what's the girl's name? I forgot what her name was. That he was
in the Dark Knight. I know who you're talking about anyway.
Yeah, she wrote that letter to him saying she's going to marry Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
And it was all like, I'm sorry and all this stuff. And then Alfred took it, and I think he burned the letter. He never gave it to Bruce Wayne. And it was like, Alfred, like, you legend. Thank you, man.
Alfred's the man. But
Yeah,
man,
but dude, I love that instrumental stuff, because sometimes the words and the words in music it's just polluting, man. And it's like, I just like the instrumental stuff just gets me going sometimes.
We talked about this, me and Will, actually, about what you listen to in the gym. And I find if I have a long gym session, something like that, instrumental or even like operatic, like Pavarotti. I caught Action Bronson listening to Pavarotti in the gym one time, and then I went for like 2 weeks. I was just listening to Pavarotti, especially when you're benching, like, and it's unreal. But you should definitely try and get to see Hans Zimmer live. Now you might have to come to Europe to do it, but full orchestra, and they put the films, like clips of the films, on a massive screen and play the music or the instrumental from that scene, for multiple different scenes. And like the amount of films that he has done, like, it's the score for is just crazy. So yeah, I definitely recommend it for you if you're really into him. So next one is then, who's going to play you in the movie? Russell Crowe by the sounds of things, or what's his name, Christian Bale?
Oh, in a movie of what?
Of you.
Oh, yeah, dude. So like, I actually, that's tough, because they would kind of have to look like me. But dude, I love Christian Bale. He's one of my favorite. I like Tom Hardy.
Yeah, he's the man.
Not too much Russell Crowe. Not too big fan. But I also love Ryan Gosling. All those guys are just like probably my favorite actors. I guess DiCaprio too. In The Revenant was one of my favorite movies.
It was deadly. Any books you're reading at the moment?
Yeah, I have this big textbook. It's called Sanction, which I've been reading for like almost a year now, off and on. And then I opened this other book. It's called I've been reading. It's called The Overstory. It was recommended by Hugh Jackman on the Tim Ferriss podcast. The Overstory. He said it like completely changed his life. I don't know. It's weird. It's about human beings, and then it like relates them to trees. So there are moments where it's like kind of out there, but it's also you read it and it like kind of changes your day actually when you go through some of the chapters. But in Sanction is I don't know, it's a really weird futuristic book, and there's just so many lessons about life. Probably more on like I guess you could say like the Republican side than the liberal side, if you wanted to get political.
Don't worry, it's Ireland, so
but
nobody cares.
One of the parts of the book that was I had just opened it, and it was last summer, and I was kind of I was at this gym, working at this gym, and we did a lot of RPR, like the activation stuff. And I used to be so big on it, and then I just was like, this is garbage. I call it out, because it's like you have to do it every day. A lot of athletes don't want to do it. You give a reason, well, you're activating the glute here, and it's like, that's why in the activity it's like, nah, there's no way that is accurate. If you feel better, cool, you feel better, great, let's leave it at that. I get off the table, I feel beter, leave it at that. You try to explain the mechanism and say, yeah, because your glute is activating now. Like, I think that you're wrong, you can't prove that. So that would just kind of frustrate me. But I think in the book he had this sentence that said, the pragmatic man is the weak man. And I read that, and I was like, just reflecting on myself, the way I had been for the last year, because I was straight pragmatic, straight of like, if you can't explain something for the way that it is, you're useless. Like, get out of here. Everything needs to be as objective as possible and scientific. And I think what he was getting at with that phrase was just like, nothing in life is pure objective. Nothing in life is pure fact. And there's always a subjective side or an artful side to everything. So there are a number of guys out in the field that I look up to who are as objective as possible. And reading that and kind of appreciating that, I've lost a lot of respect for them, because that's not how things work. Like, nothing is 100% objective. You should try to make your starting point for your intervention as objective as possible, but there are always nuances to everything, and there's always an artful side and a subjective side that when you're straight pragmatic, you'll never appreciate it.
Not everything is explainable, I guess. So then, would that be the biggest thing you've learned in the last 12 months?
Oh, last 12 months. That's a difficult question. Maybe the biggest thing I learned in the last 12 months would probably be that I enjoy being alone. I really enjoy being alone. Like, yeah, I can hang around friends, and even as I travel, I go hang out with people, and I usually have a good time with them, but again, there are things that I will like and dislike about them, and it's always just like I want to go be alone for a while, for a few days, for a few hours. Another book I've read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm.
I've read that a few times, and I have the audiobook, and I've just recently been re-listening to the audiobook, because the first time you read that book, or for me at least, the first time I read that, it completely changed my life for the next 2 months, and I was so peaceful and more present. And then, because at the time I read it, I think I was 20, I had 20 years of living this way, of not being present and chasing validation and being chaotic. And then I had 2 months of more presence and peace. And then I just went back to the same way I live. So I think revisiting that book, because that's one of the only books I've ever read that you read some things and you can feel so peaceful and present in that moment of reading it, because it just resonates so much with you. But the issue is, you read it once and you're done. You should probably read it 50 times in your life to actually get it to get yourself to appreciate it, or I guess it to like seep into you a little bit more.
Or to apply it, I guess. Lots of people just read things and just put a story up of them reading it, rather than actually, what have you applied?
And so that's why, like I say, the biggest thing I learned probably being alone, because going back through this book, or going back, trying to be as present as I can, you realize how all of the people in the world, even your closest friends, are like, there's such a lack of presence. It's sad, man. And it's tough to be around. And not saying that not saying that I can create an ego out of it now and be like, I'm more present than you are present. But just like, man, there's always this battle where you're always fighting for something. Like,
I'm not going to go too deep now, because we're about to finish, but
yeah,
I think that's innate in humans, to be always thinking towards the future. I think it's developed, like it's hereditary, but it is obviously very valuable to be able to be in the here and now. And in the here and now, I'm going to ask you the final question, which is, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Nothing at all. I think that a story to relate this was, I'm the middle of 7. I have a younger brother, and we had a pond when I was a young kid. I was probably 12 years old. We had created a pond in our field. My dad just filled it with water, dug a hole, filled it with water. So we'd go skating out there. I never went skating, because all of our skates were like female skates. They were white, and I didn't want to wear white skates. I wish I had some like black hockey skates or something. So I would always wear boots. So me and him went out there once. I went out there earlier in the day, and I fell in. It was like a foot deep, but I fell in. There was an area of ice that was whatever. And then I went out later with my younger brother to play. And I told him, don't go in that spot, because I just fell in there this morning. And then I went to play by myself, whatever. I looked over, and he was in that spot, and he fell in. And then it was maybe like 2 feet or 3 feet. I'm not sure, but he was really little. So I had to hop in, and I had to hop in too. And I fell in as well to take him out. And then we had to walk back home soaking wet in the snow. It was freezing. And that was kind of an analogy, and I've read it in a number of books too, is like, you can give people all the warning in the world and all the advice in the world, but the best thing they can do is have experiences. That's the best way to learn. So if I could go back and like my 18-year-old self and like give a warning or give something, and I also think I have the personality, I don't listen to that stuff. I don't listen to warnings. I don't listen to advice. I would just, if it was my third, I probably would feel at 18 that I know better than my older self, and be like, nah, screw you. I'm going to do it my way. So, dude, I can look back on myself, man. 18 is like, it's almost like a stranger. Like who was this person? The way that I went about, the way that I viewed everything. And I've only learned that through having negative experiences, through having a ton of negative experiences over my life, and somehow finding a way out of it, which usually would have been reading books or finding mentors that can help me along the way. But if I had never gone through all those experiences, man, it's like, I don't think I could have the perspective that I have now. So giving warning and trying to avoid things, no, let me go through it. And that's how I'll take something away from it.
Thanks, Jake. A lot deeper than would be expected from two strength and conditioning coaches, I guess, in the end, but really valuable conversation. If anybody has made it this far, hello, and thanks for listening. But this is what happens when two podcasters collide, I guess. It just goes on for a little bit longer than expected. But thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.